Order. Present Assembly Bill 361. Please be advised that members of the Planning Commission might participate in today's meeting telephonically. Members of the public might view and listen to the meeting live online through the city website as noted on the agenda. Tonight's invocation will be given by Ms. Masayet, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mr. Flores. Everybody stand, please.
Dear Lord, we thank you for the ability to come before you with this commission. We invite you to be here with us this evening, to grant us the wisdom with each and every case and situation that is presented before us tonight. In your name we pray.
Now for the Pledge of Allegiance, place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Commissioners, please announce any items that you are recusing from due to conflict or interest prior to the item beginning here. None. Can you give me a roll call, Erica, please?
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. I will now take roll call. You can just say you're present once you hear your name. Commissioner Barcena,
Present.
Commissioner De La Rosa,
Present.
Commissioner Gomez,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Villalobos,
Present.
and Chairperson Rivera.
Present. Thank you. I would like to announce tonight we have new members and we want to welcome them. Armando Barcena and Gabriela Gomez. Welcome to the commission, Planning Commission.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Public comment is now open for item listed on the Planning Commission agenda. Secretary, please announce the instruction for public participation.
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items listed on the Planning Commission agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. And I don't believe we have anybody here in the audience to speak on any item. And I don't see anybody in the chat line wishing to speak on any item on the agenda, Chairperson.
Thank you, Eric. If there is no objection by the Planning Commission, I will close public participation.
Let's begin with some background. During the October 24th, 2022 City Council meeting, staff guidance was requested for establishing an ordinance for a public art program. Staff researched the feasibility of requiring art in public or including an in-lieu payment as regulation to expand the city's artistic and cultural resources. An implementation of a program and or collection of distinct fees are separate from the collection of public facility fees authorized by the state's Mitigation Fee Act. A little moreover, it was recommended that the independent ordinance with distinctive methodology and guidelines would be appropriate. The proposed ordinance would expand opportunities for residents or visitors to experience artistic, historic, and cultural art and public places program in the city. Now, project applicants would be required to install approved artwork in conjunction with the project on the subject property, or donate artwork to the city, or donate an in lieu contribution equal to 1% of the total building valuation on site. Now, surrounding cities that have adopted public art program ordinances have all used valuation thresholds are based on the surrounding municipalities, as they have similar thresholds in place ranging from as low as $50,000 and as high as $500,000, with no report of negative impact to the rate of development. Now, in contrast, there are projects that are exempt from the requirements of this chapter. And those follow as rehabilitation and renovation work as a result of a natural disaster, nonprofit organization facilities, development containing a minimum of 25% affordable units for very low, lower, and moderate income households, senior citizen housing, projects dedicated to performing art spaces, and all public work and governmental agency projects. Now, adoption of Ordinance 931 would establish a Art in Public Places Fund. As indicated before, project applicants have the option to pay an in lieu contribution of 1% or the total building valuation to Art in Public Places in lieu of proposing the installation of artwork for the project. This in lieu contribution would be allocated to the Art in Public Places Fund, which can be used for installation of artwork in public places throughout the city, maintenance for the artwork placed throughout the city, support of performing arts, and administration of the program itself. Now, in addition, the adoption of Ordinance 931 would establish a Art in Public Places Review Committee. The committee would be responsible for administering and fulfilling the administrative duties of the Art in Public Places chapter. And the committee will consist of the Community Development Department Director as the chair, Director of the Recreation and Community Services, and other city officers or public or private agencies in the opinion of the chair of the committee who would have interest in the public art program. Now, however, we would like to maintain openness, transparency, and clear communication with the public for public participation. Staff would also like to include a community member to join the Art in Public Places Committee. Therefore, staff is requesting the commission's guidance and provided two ways the city can include a community member in the Art in Public Places Committee. And they are option one, the Planning Commission could appoint a community member. Or option two, the proposed Art in Public Places Committee Chair, which in this case would be the Community Development Department Director, could appoint a community member. Please consider which options you believe would work best, and the decision will be determined as a part of the recommendations of this item. Craft dining. Then at the bottom left-hand side, we have the city of Alhambra, where they have it's more likely like a sculpture seating area in the Renaissance Plaza. And then we have the city of Downey, where in their Downey Theater Plaza, they have a sculpture with a fountain. And these are type of projects we could see throughout the city if we begin implementing this new ordinance. Now, there are three ways the city may have artwork installed for the public: on private property, donated artwork, or purchased artwork and to be installed in public places. So we'll go ahead and start off with private places artwork, which would be viewed as a type 2 site plan review and be reviewed and approved by the Art in Public Places Committee pursuant to the adopted guidelines identified in this chapter. Donated artwork would be reviewed by the Director of Community Development for recommendation of approval to the City Council. Public places artwork would be artwork purchased by the city through the in lieu contributions and would be reviewed by the Art in Public Places Committee for recommendation of approval to the City Council. Now, this is artwork that the city would essentially purchase and install where it fits best. Now, we want to ensure proper maintenance is consistent with all installed artwork. Therefore, we must identify who is responsible for maintenance. Artwork installed on private property shall remain under the ownership of the property with executed covenant to ensure proper maintenance. Artwork donated to the city shall become the property of the city upon the acceptance by the city council, and the city will be responsible for the proper maintenance. Now, compliance, this is when the artwork needs to be approved or the in lieu fee needs to be provided. So the following would be required to be complied with prior to the issuance of a building permit, and that would be payment of an in lieu contribution, donation of artwork approval, or proposed artwork approval. Now, eventually after that, the following would be required to be complied with prior to the issuance of a building final. And that would be the installation of the approved artwork and also the recorded covenant stating who is responsible for the maintenance of the artwork. Now, our staff's recommendation is to open the public hearing and receive public testimony and find that the recommendation of the proposed ordinance is not subject to the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act for reasons stated herein, and close the public hearing and adopt resolution PC 2023-01, recommending to the city council approval of zoning code amendment number 2023-003 and adoption of ordinance number 931, amending Title 9 of the Bell Gardens Municipal Code to add chapter 9.71 art in public places. And lastly, direct staff to include one of the following standards for appointing a community member as a member of the Art and Public Places Committee as recommendation to the city council. And again, those options are option 1, a community member shall be appointed to be a part of the committee by the Planning Commission, or option 2, a community member shall be appointed to be a part of the committee by the committee chair. That concludes my presentation. Staff is available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissions. At this time, I will open the public hearing and receive if you have any testimony upon the public. Erica?
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on the item listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker and written comment are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We do not have anybody in the public wishing to speak on this item. And chairperson, we do not have anybody in the chat line wishing to speak on this item.
We don't have nobody?
No, we do not.
If there is no objection by the planning commission, I will close the public hearing. Objection? We'll close it. There is any questions for the staff from the commissions? No questions?
I have a question regarding the appointment of the community member to the committee. I guess, is there a possibility of having a hybrid, maybe that the committee could nominate someone and the planning commission can then approve that person, or is it one or the other?
Good evening, Stephen Jones, City Planner. I can answer that. I think that you have the autonomy to make a recommendation for how you'd like to see that process go. So it could be either. Thanks. It could be either the way we've recommended in those 2 different formats, one or the other, or you could come up with something else. So yes, the committee, the director or the committee could recommend someone that the planning commission would then approve. The implications of that would be it's more of a term. So I would defer to our city attorney Stephanie on that, but it's more of a term that they'd be appointed for, as opposed to a project by project basis where the original intent was that if someone were within a certain distance of a project that was proposing public art, a person with that connection could be a part of the committee for that particular project. And then if someone else maybe 2 miles away is another project, then another person within that area could be a part of it. So that our intention again was to have either just city staff do it, or if the planning commission thought to recommend a committee member, it would be on a sort of a rotating basis or as needed. And again, in conjunction with their proximity to the site. So if someone were appointed, they may or may not be within that certain proximity. So we'd have some changes to wrap up whatever you propose. Changes to the ordinance, I mean, because right now, again, there's a directional and a proximity factor that works into a committee person being a community member.
And one more question regarding the community member, what would be the criteria beyond proximity? What would be the criteria to include that person on the committee?
Adrian, I think it's just the distance, but correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, it's just about if they're within a certain distance.
Okay, thank you.
Are we gonna make it like 500 feet away, like the ABS?
You could. That's again something that we're looking for your guidance on. So you could say, 500 feet. You could say a mile. You could say whatever distance you think after you deliberate, and then we'll take that to the council or we'll make the change in the ordinance and take that to the council for your ultimate recommendation to them.
Okay. That would be one option if everybody would like to put it like a 500 feet away from the project. What I would like to see is I would like to see the whole planning commission to approve any artwork and the appointed whoever it's going to be. And that would be much better because each project will be approved by the planning commission since we approve the projects anyway.
Okay, and there's going to be some projects that wouldn't necessarily come to the planning commission. We'll talk about that a little more in depth, but if there's a site plan review that's a director's review, it wouldn't have necessarily come to you, even though the project valuation and the project details would dictate that they do public art. So there's going to be some instances where you wouldn't have seen a project, but you could be seeing then the public art. So if that's something you would recommend, we can look at making that change and remove the committee and make it so that a certain valuation or a certain type of threshold is just seen by the planning commission. Whatever the trigger is that requires public art would then be removing the committee and saying, we don't need the director and staff to look at this. We'd want to bring it to the committee. The commission. Is that something where you're looking at changing?
How the Downey does it when they do those projects, that they hire somebody that's knowledge on art?
Yeah, so I actually did look into some of the nearby cities that have this ordinance in place. And to reiterate your question, you're asking if who they hire to do the artwork for them?
Remember the artwork, when you propose an artwork, somebody have to decide what it's gonna be, right? We're gonna have the approval of the artwork whatever they decide to do. Usually they get 2 or 3 artworks, and but who's gonna do the artwork is gonna be, an art person. Like before, in another commission I had, an art people will kind of stay around the committee, but in this case, you can't do that. But I just want to know how you guys gonna do it.
Yeah, sure. So for example, to answer your question, the city of Downey, what they do, I actually have it here in front of me, is the approval of the artwork, they actually take it to the city council for approval. For the decision of who's going to be producing the artwork, they actually do a interview process. So they have the different artists come in with different examples of what they could do for us. And essentially the committee would decide on which artist to go with, but approval of the actual artwork itself would be with the city council.
And Adrian, would that be, so is there a distinction between public art, what's being placed on a private property, and a public art program? Or so for the public art, you're talking
That's
about
correct. Yeah.
the process for selection of an artist and how the art is approved. For the private development, it's a little different in that we allow the private property developer or the applicant to select a person that has the appropriate criteria that's codified or would be codified, and then the artwork that's proposed is reviewed by the committee. But at this point, it would be, it sounds like you want to make it the commission. So there's two different processes. One is for the private development of art on private property, and there may be requirements for a certain project to produce an artwork. They again would be responsible for selection of the artist based on criteria that would be codified. They have to have a certain level of, I guess, excellence and expertise in artistry in order to be eligible to produce artwork. And then beyond that, right now we're proposing that a committee would review that art and say whether or not it's in good taste and appropriate. And again, it sounds like we're going to be changing that to that the commission would then review those artworks, or we're making a recommendation that the commission review those artworks. And separately, there's a public art or donation type process to where in Downey, the city council reviews it. And Adrian, correct, please provide that one more time. What are we proposing for public art and the donated art? Is there a process for us other than the committee, or is it the committee as well? It's the committee.
Yes, as well. It's the committee
Okay.
as well.
So right now, it would also be the committee that would look at public art. And so again, it sounds like you might want to change that to the planning commission looking at that as opposed to the city staff committee and a community member. And that's something we can do. So two processes, both would be reviewed right now by the art committee, but we can update that as you see fit. So is that am I getting the gist of what you're?
I don't know if
looking
the
at-
commissions are agree with that, but if
So-
we have to say to approval, and if the city council has to approve, then we will do a recommendation, but we will need to have it here to make sure how many they have in process, so we can recommend the one we think is fit for the city. Since we represent the city, right? The citizens.
Just to clarify, the proposed committee that was being proposed by staff is also going to be, it's not an end all. So this committee would be a separate entity that would have the resources to review and to make the recommendation eventually to the city council. And this committee would be comprised of the community development director, staff, and potentially a member of the public. Or the other option that's being presented. So it's not going to, it's not going to get approved or be put up without multiple layers of approval and recommendations. So I did want to just clarify that.
Thank you. That's a good point, because they could, if the review committee stands, that's an appealable decision in the same way that, again, it says a type 2 site plan review is appealable. So they could say, the committee denied my request, or they approved it, and maybe the community doesn't like it. There's a process in place to appeal then to you. And to speak to your other point, it wouldn't necessarily have to go directly to the city council. You could, again, make a decision. The committee can make a decision, an appealable decision, as well as you could make a decision, which is appealable as well. So should you decide planning commission should be seeing these artworks, it's appealable to the city council, but ultimately you would have the final decision if it's not appealed. In the same way, the artwork review committee could have that final authority unless it's appealed to you, so the next higher body. But I was speaking to your point about you making a recommendation. You wouldn't necessarily have to make a recommendation. You could just approve if it were this body as an artwork reviewer.
So I'd just like to say that the recommendations that's on the agenda is one that I like. I like that it would go to a review committee first, and if need be, with an appeal that would come to us for us to see it. And then I just want to state that I like the option 2, where a community member will be appointed by the committee chair.
Any more inputs, Commission? Any more questions? I would like to see something else. I would like to make sure that we are correct. We say quality of life as new development occurs. How this will do the quality of life? I would like to get an explanation on that. Oh,
Sure. Everything that the planning department does is based on our guiding document or our blueprint, the general plan. And so the general plan includes things that are pretty abstract, for lack of a better word, and quality of life is one of those things. And so when you enhance or at least even introduce the element of an artistic or cultural or historic or heritage type element to your life, our lives within the city, and it's not just
next question I would like to have is when you put a 5,000 here, which is 1% of the $500,000 project. So for the record, just to know, so if it's a 2 million project, that will be 4 times, right? That would be 20,000.
So if it's a $2 million project, it'll be 1% of that $2 million.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Commissions?
I mean, I just wanted to agree that, you know, art in public places, in the place where you live is a great way to enhance civic pride. I think that there are, you know, a lot of places that I go to, other cities that I go to, and when I see that public art, I'm like, wow, this would be a great place to live. And I think that's something that we need more of here in Bell Gardens, for people to feel that sense of civic pride. And I think this is a great way of achieving that.
Yeah, I think art is really good. You know, I make always as a reference in Long Beach, but I did work with the art people in Long Beach, so I have a little experience on that. And it's very nice. I like art. It's just that sometimes you have a conflict with your residents, what they want. And that's the thing that we need to be. I think we need to have something to say so we can help the citizens. Because we have if we have a line or a law that we're gonna do, you know, it's no balance in checks, and then whoever decides is gonna happen, that's not what we want. But that's not what we're saying. So that's very nice. So if everybody is in approval mode, so somebody make a motion, I will entertain a motion in a second.
Just a comment, Mr. Rivera.
Okay.
So I see what you're saying, but and what the committee is there to do is that they are appointing a community member, so the people will certainly have a voice in what art is being displayed in these projects that will be coming up soon. So I see what you're saying there, that the citizens or the community should have a voice, and they will if they have a community member in this committee.
So as long as we understand those guidelines and we can make something like that, and if the commissions agree, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt resolution PC 2023-01, ordinance number 931. Motion to approve.
That will be with the changes, right?
Yes, with the changes.
Okay. In a second,
I second the motion.
motion in a second. Erica, can you give me a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Barcena,
Present.
Commissioner De La Rosa,
That'll be a yes.
Commissioner Gomez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Villalobos,
Yes.
and Chairperson Rivera.
Yes.
Sorry, just for clarification of the record, when you said the changes, which changes were you referring to?
The changes the planning commission, it will be basically have a say on the
So option one.
Would it be option 1 or 2? I think Commissioner Barsana mentioned option 2 and that you liked it. And so would that reflect what the commission prefers? Option 2? I guess if that's what I thought you meant by changes. I guess we should have clarified, but option 2 would be where the director would appoint the community member to be a part of the committee based on the criteria in the code, in the proposal.
So as far as I understood it, it seems that the commission in general wants more control in the hands of the planning commission. So I think we would like to go with option 1, actually. And I believe the changes that Commissioner Rivera was referring to was that instead of having the appeals going to the committee for review, as I believe it was going to initially, that it would come to us instead. I'm not sure if you can clarify on that.
Sure, the appeals would have always come to the
Okay.
planning commission. So the review, the currently codified appeal process has appeals going to the next higher level. And so at type 2 site plan review approved by the director would go to the planning commission. So option 1 would already include the appeal body as the planning commission.
So to clarify for the record, Commissioner Barsana, was your motion being made approving items 1 to 3 with option 1?
Yes, my motion was to approve 1, 2, 3 with option 1. But I think there's some confusion as to what was agreed on, because I believe Commissioner Rivera was proposing something different.
Erica, would you take roll call, or sorry, take a vote to see if there is any discrepancy, or Chair Rivera, if you need any clarification?
Well, number 1, it will be the one we assigned, right? But we will have a say as the planning commission, or we will be just it's
With
just an appealing body. Because we wanna, I thought when I said that we can get it all the projects, but I don't know if that's not, we can't do that.
So option 1 is just to appoint the community member. For appeals would be only necessary if an approval was appealed, and then the appeal will go to the planning commission. That's the way it stands as we speak.
So we still don't have no say on all the projects, right?
As we speak as right now, no. The only say is if you appoint the community member or if appeal reaches your desk.
So what the commission want?
I think I'm actually good with that. I think that I trust the committee and to make the selection of the artwork. And if there's an issue, then we can definitely look at it.
The committee is very clear who's gonna be the committee, right? Okay. So what do you,
I say yes, that we should have the committee instead of us deciding what the artwork
Okay.
should be displayed. Yes.
De La Rosa?
Yeah, I would like to echo that statement. I trust that the committee chair can still be working together with the appointee. They'd be working closely, so I trust their judgment to appoint that person.
Here we go. That's, Phil, you answer or your question?
Chairperson, if you may, Chairperson, if you like, we can go ahead and do a new roll call with option either 1 or 2, just for clarification purposes.
Okay, let's go back again and let's do another motion. and then we go back to the process. And you can say what we just discussed.
Would someone like to entertain the motion again?
Motion to adopt resolution PC 2023-01, ordinance number 931 with option 1, community member appointed by the planning commission.
I second the motion.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
we have a,
Pardon me, we're still missing recommendation 1 with, for CEQA.
No, we did say recommendation 1.
No, I'm sorry, there's 3 recommendations, and then recommendation number 3 has option 1 or 2.
Correct.
With recommendation on the proposed ordinance, not subject to provisions of CEQA. And adopt resolution PC 2023-01, ordinance number 931. With option 1, where the planning commission will appoint the community member to the committee.
I second that motion.
motion, we have a second. Erica, can you give us a roll call again?
Sure. Commissioner Barcena,
I just want to bring it to attention that I thought we had agreed on option 2, where the committee will put on the committee chair. Is that not what we had agreed to?
While you're deciding, if I may just make a point of clarification. So if the planning commission is to appoint the committee member, then it would be agendized. It would be on a consent item. I'll actually ask Stephanie that question, but it would be before you to then approve each member every time there's public art. And it wouldn't be like it's going to be every week or every month, because these, again, are certain projects over a certain building valuation. But be aware that option 1 means we're coming to you to say, Joe is going to be on the committee. Do you agree? And then you would need to vote on that. If the director is to appoint a committee member, there's no need to visit the planning commission to say, Joe wants to be on the committee. Should you agree? So that's the difference between the options. And I had assumed with Commissioner Barcena's comment that we were talking about the chair making, the committee chair, not the commission chair, making that recommendation and appointment. And then we went back and said option 1. So it's up to you guys. And I'm completely, open to either, but we mentioned option 2 and then we voted option 1.
Yeah, so I think it's option 2 that we agreed on but just when the motion was made, option 1 was said, but based on our conversation, I think it was option 2 that we wanted.
So option 2.
So
Yeah.
Option 2.
What you do? De La Rosa, also too, okay, go ahead and do it again. We get it right the third time. Hopefully.
Motion to recommend that the proposed ordinance is not subject to the provisions of CEQA and to adopt resolution number PC 2023-01, ordinance number 931. And with option 2, a committee member shall be appointed by the committee chair.
I second the motion.
That's okay. De La Rosa, that's okay?
That's a yes.
Okay, give me a roll call again, Erica.
Commissioner Barcena,
That's fine with me.
Commissioner De La Rosa,
Yes.
Commissioner Gomez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Villalobos,
Yes.
Chairperson Rivera,
Yes,
5-0, motion passes.
thank you.
Stephanie, did we get that? Did we do it right?
Yes. We're all practicing here. Don't worry. 3rd time's a charm, exactly. No, we'll get there.
Thanks.
Now we have the consent calendar, item number 2. We will now move to a consent calendar. Does any member of the planning commission wish to pull an item for separate discussion? If not, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the items. Item 2, consent and calendar 1.
Motion to approve the minutes of Planning Commission meeting November 16, 2022.
I second the motion.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Anybody oppose? Pass unanimous. Thank you. Discuss item number 3 and 4. Draft 2022 Bell Gardens General Plan Annual Progress Report, file number 2023-006. Presentation will be given by Mosayed,
Mhm.
Associates Planning.
Okay, one moment while I share the screen. Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, staff, and public. Tonight, I will be presenting the draft Bell Gardens General Plan Progress Report that I will explain its purpose in further detail as we proceed. The Planning Division staff recommends that the Planning Commission firstly receive and file this draft report, and secondly, adopt a resolution recommending to the Bell Gardens City Council consent to the report's submission to the California Office of Planning and Research that I will refer to as OPR moving forward. Some background on this. The California Government Code Section 65400 requires that municipalities such as Bell Gardens file an annual report addressing the status of the general plan and progress made towards its goals and objectives. The California Office of Planning and Research has provided strong guidelines and formatting recommendations to assist staff and streamline the reporting process, and the annual progress reports are due on the 1st of April each year. The purpose of this annual report is to inform the legislative bodies, administrative departments, and the public of the status of progress of the goals and objectives of the general plan. Knowing the city's progress would allow for any adjustments that would better serve the health, safety, welfare, and progress of the community. The content requirements of the annual report have been clearly delineated by OPR. The report must contain an introduction to the city and the logistics of the Community Development Department organizational structure. The report must outline implementation measures inclusive of the Planning Division, Building and Safety, Business License, Code Enforcement, and Economic Development divisions. The report also includes other city departments such as Police, Public Works, Recreation and Community Services as they relate to the general plan and their respective elements. The reports may also include any additional content such as the goals of the Community Development Department in meeting the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, new housing requirements outlined in the updated 6-cycle housing element. The draft annual progress report also outlines the annual Planning Division activities, any general plan amendments, and highlights major development applications received, such as, such as a sizable commercial and office development approved at 7601 Eastern Avenue, a proposed 4-story self-storage facility on Suva Street that will be presented in forthcoming meeting, and the advancement of 2 key residential developments at 8000 Bell Gardens and Shoal Street. Planning Division staff recommends that the Planning Commission firstly receive and file this report, and secondly, adopt Resolution PC 2023-02, recommending that the Bell Gardens City Council consent to the report submission to the California Office of Planning and Research. Thank you so much, and planning staff is open to address any questions from the commission and public.
Commissions, any questions? De La Rosa, any questions?
No questions on my end.
So we need to have a motion to,
Motion to receive and file this report and adopt resolution PC number 2023-02, recommending that the city council receives, files, and consents to the submission of the 2022 Bell Gardens APR.
second,
Second.
give me a roll call, please, Erica.
Commissioner Barcena,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Rosa,
Yes.
Commissioner Gomez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Villalobos,
Yes.
and Chairperson Rivera.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
so we need to have a report on environmental justice, the element of the Bell Gardens general plan. The presentation will be given by Steve Jones, city planner.
Do I don't have that presentation. Do you have it? Oh, I forgot. I don't need it actually. Okay, I couldn't access it. I should have told you earlier, but okay, I have a presentation, but I'll just go ahead and speak. I don't have the it up, but I will say good evening, Chair Rivera and Commissioners. My name is Stephen Jones. This discussion item was placed on the agenda to present and discuss the impending draft environmental justice element to the Bell Gardens general plan. The city was awarded an amount from the Local Economic Assistance Program, or LEAP grant, that it was administered by the California Housing and Community Development Department to be used for projects that aimed at protecting the public's health, safety, and welfare. The city determined it appropriate to use the grant funding to comply with California legislature and abide by the LEAP grant requirements to foster public accessibility, sustainability, and resiliency. So staff recommended a professional services agreement be adopted to authorize a consultant to help prepare an environmental justice document that's responsive to state laws. The city council adopted a resolution to work with Impact Sciences to produce an environmental justice element to the Bell Gardens general plan. And we recommend today that you receive and file this report as well and be aware of forthcoming drafts of the status and the updates to the general plan for your feedback, your guidance, and your input on the methodology with which we'll undertake to produce this document. So I'm a big proponent of lists. So I made some objectives here for today. The specific learning objectives for this discussion are to define environmental justice, to discuss a brief history of California environmental justice history, and to describe the EJ process. So I'll refer to environmental justice as EJ throughout. The history. So Federal Executive Order number 12898 set the tone for states and local communities to help provide protections, not from the environment, but from the things that we do to the environment. California Government Code number 65040 requires identification of certain groups, either low income or traditionally disadvantaged or disenfranchised groups, to help mitigate negative effects and implement strategies of environmental justice failings, I would say. There are state guidelines in place that dictate format and content to ensure consistency with the laws and among jurisdictions in the entire state. So our environmental justice element will follow what the state guidelines require. So it'll match what other jurisdictions are doing, but at the same time be specific to what Bell Gardens needs are. There are grants and things available for remediation of certain sites. So I will point out that the the city of Bell Gardens is looking at remediating the former Burke oil site, which is on Shoal Street, to allow the development of an affordable housing project. Now that site needs to get cleaned up to the tune of millions of dollars to remediate the soil based on the former uses that created the hazardous waste. But it is being cleaned up. It is being funded by a grant, And that's part of what environmental justice is going to do in terms of the entire city and providing those protections for our residents. The Environmental Protection Agency addresses uncontrolled and abandoned hazardous waste sites throughout the country. And so there were significant delays because it's a federal government site or federal government department. There's significant delays in getting things accomplished. And so the state responds with through the Department of Toxic Substances Control with these types of grants and things that are allowed to help sites get cleaned up a little quicker, get through the bureaucratic process a little faster, and then again, provide funding for folks to do their own cleanup. A lot of times it's available to private industry and to private developers to clean up their messes. But in this case, the city bought the site and it was a surplus site that we ended up getting a grant for, and then we're able to enter into escrow with an affordable housing developer. That's just a brief discussion of what types of things we're doing for environmental justice, even without the element. The element will only help with additional strategies and additional implementation strategies to get things done in other sites. Planning and land use as a part of history has been used in unintended ways and has had unintended consequences. So long before the EJ term was coined in the 1700s, California Native American tribes were the first groups or part of the first groups to experience systematic oppression as a result of the Spanish missions. In the 1800s, the Act for Government and Protection of Indians put their resources at risk for fire and forest densification. So those types of things are still affecting us today in terms of wildfires, not so much here, but in the other areas, in rural areas. In the 1890s, the Chinese were relocated to areas that had been previously reserved for slaughterhouses, tallow factories, and hog factories. In 1913, California's alien law targeted Japanese Americans, preventing them from owning property. During the 1930s, there was redlining that effectively segregated cities that led to disinvestment in detrimental areas that consisted largely of Black and brown and low-income communities. And in 1960s, farm workers in particular were exposed to dangerous pesticides. We know that Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez, who will be remembered next month, organized the Delano grape strike and bargained for worker protections that ban pesticides or certain pesticides. In 1988, when residents learned that the Chem Waste firm planned to construct a toxic waste incinerator at the dump site, they organized and rallied against it, and they were successful. So all these events led to the historic and traditional meaning of environmental justice. And so when we look at events like this, we are privileged to be able to use planning and zoning in a different way and come up with the document to help provide protections. And so that helps us talk about the history and show that there is an equity connection in environmental justice. And there are several jurisdictions in our area that have already taken action to address this type of issue. Bell has had the same consultant, Impact Sciences, do an environmental justice element for them. And that element actually won an award from the Association of Environmental Professionals. So the folks we have working with us founded their company in 1988. And they have a long history in preparing environmental documents and compliance documents with state legislature. So we expect them to do as well for us. And part of their methodology is to make sure that they're reaching out to the community. They're partnering with the Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative group so that we can effectively engage. You know, there's 3 of us here that are working for planning, or 4 of us, and we can't get to every door. We can't get to every person. But the way to engage the community to make sure that we're encompassing all the needs for environmental justice is by partnering with people like Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative or LANI, so that they, first of all, have the experience and the expertise at engaging with the community. And they're able to do so, again, based on the funding that we received and in conjunction with the group that's working on as our consultant. So going back to our objectives, we define environmental justice. We talked about the state and the history. And then the basic components of an EJ element again, start with community engagement. So that's what we're working on for next month. Again, what we recommend today is for you to receive and file a report, but also provide guidance and feedback. If there are community organizations, for example, that you want to make sure we don't miss, maybe there's a community advocate or someone that you think we need to reach out to, please feel free to have that discussion now or soon or later and let us know so that we can make sure, again, we're meeting all of the community's needs by making sure that everyone's engaged effectively. So yeah, part of it is let's have that discussion. We wanted to let you know that that's happening so that when it does come before you in a couple of months, there's going to be a draft or two. We'll probably have a workshop, and that's what we'll be doing in terms of environmental justice, making sure that hazards are mitigated. Maybe there's particulate matter or something that's happening in the 710 that we need to make sure we're addressing in the way that makes sense for Bell Gardens. So with that, I am available for questions on the discussion item, but again, it's just really for you to receive and file and provide that guidance.
Commissions, any questions?
Yes, I have a question. So you mentioned that Lonnie will be the one primarily engaging with the residents. In future drafts or in future times, are we going to get insight into what type of methodologies they're using to engage with the community?
Absolutely. We're actually looking at a public participation plan, hopefully this week, more likely maybe next week, and we'll provide the update at the next commission meeting, but they're going to give us the methodology in writing and allow us to either provide feedback or agree or disagree and see how that goes. But they're definitely going to put that in writing within the next few days.
Okay, sounds good.
So you mentioned the project that's happening on Shoal to clean up the area for housing. What other issues do you think the City of Bell Gardens is facing right now that will also be helped by this?
In terms of hazardous waste sites or specifically for environmental justice in a broader context?
Well, in the broader context and also in more along the lines of mobility justice, like for people who don't necessarily drive, for people, that type of impact.
So with the community engagement, we're definitely going to be reaching out, and again, we'll have that public participation plan. So we'll have more details the next time we meet. But are you referring specifically to how we're engaging for the document or the components of the document that speak to mobility? Because we have two different things that we could look at here. The equity of access and mobility is definitely spoken to in our circulation element, but it will be the environmental justice element will touch on a host and a variety of different issues. And so mobility comes into it, but it may not be focused on in that way. So if that's something you'd like to see, we can definitely talk to the consultants about it. But
Sure,
go ahead.
that's something that I would definitely like to see. I mean,
Okay.
Specifically, during the pandemic, we saw a whole lot of people moving around on bicycles more, first to get out of the house. And now due to, gas prices, and it's more expensive to own a car, and gas is more expensive. And we have a lot of people that are opting for other modes of transportation to be able to get, from point A to point B. And some of them are not necessarily living in Bell Gardens, but they're coming through Bell Gardens. And so, I think that's something that we need to look at how we can make it safer for people to be able to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because again, we talk about the 710 and we talk about particulate matter and what they're breathing in when they're out there riding their bikes and walking.
And not only that, what's going on, for example, in the city of Bell and the city of Maywood, where you have the metro project that is going on. They're going to be building the bike lanes that are leading from the Blue Line, A line, I think it's called now, to the LA River, which is bordering with us. So I think that's something that we need to look at to be able to make those connections. Because you'll go in one city and the bike lane ends, and then there's no connecting to the next city. There's no master plan. So I mean, that's something that's near and dear to my heart. That's why I speak to that. But more than anything, I think it's important to be looking at those types of solutions, particularly with people that can't really afford car insurance and can't afford car payments and can't afford gas.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners?
I'm very excited to see this item come to the table. Primarily because, I've attended Suva Elementary, and also, Suva Intermediate, as well as Balgardens High School. What these three schools have in common is that, they're located within 500 feet of, or even 1,000 feet of relatively, like manufacturing or, industrial zone. And this, of course, brings to the table, pollution exposure, how safe it is, or how safe is it to attend these schools. And I would like to also introduce you, Stephen, to East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice. It's a community-based organization that focuses on giving out workshops to the people and informing the folks about environmental justice as a whole. And I think it's a great gateway to inform the people and push the agenda forward.
Noted. Thank you. We'll definitely reach out.
Also, I'm glad he mentioned his organization. There's one organization that we can connect with for mobility justice, and it's called People for Mobility Justice. And they are based out of, I believe I want to say it's Bell and Huntington Park. So, yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
I would like to mention on this transportation, I noticed like on Bell, and they built on Florence a piece of cement and they blocked the lanes. So if we was working together, we would tell them to take them out so we can have another lane to traffic, because it gets a lot of traffic when you're gonna go across Belt. Because they closed the line, and now I don't even think the bicycle can get through there. So before, I think they said the Metro was gonna fix it, but I don't think the Metro is getting involved in faster traffic. So we need to start working with the city next to us. And I don't know if we want to work with LA, because LA has a lot of big fat elephant in there. And I don't know, a small city like us, I think we can move like a dime much better and learn the experience, because I know we can do it. We can move. Look at Seal Beach. Look at those cities small, and they can do it. We don't need to go to LA and get in touch with them with so much fat. What I mean is too much politicians, and nothing gets done. That's one of the things I will see it, and you can see it like she was saying, going into like a Downey, going into like Commerce. I don't know if we don't have that master plan interconnected, because we have this Commerce, they put a swap meet in there next to us, a lot of traffic, and we didn't get nothing to say about it. So we need to start looking for the citizen of Bell Gardens, otherwise it's not going to happen. Now the chemicals, I would like to know what kind of chemicals do we have in that project, because we want to do houses, right?
At the Show Street project?
Yes.
Yes.
How many we have contaminated in the city that we know?
That we know of, there are, I want to say on order of magnitude 10 that are on the DTSC website and viral store. I can get back to you with a more accurate number. As we get into the environmental justice element, I know all these things are coming forward so that, the community is aware, so that they even know what to be concerned with. So we'll definitely look into the number of hazardous sites. I know there's a couple different lists, but yeah, we'll look into that. And then duly noted about your connectivity, sort of arterial concern there with mobility.
Yeah, and I will tell you about the particular matter on the freeway. A lot of trucks supposed to be clean now, because I was in that industry. But what they done now, and this is what you hear through the grapevine, is that they taken the filter off the trucks, meaning they run in direct with no filters. So what happened is, now I start seeing it again, and I live close to the freeway. I start seeing it on the mornings. You see it black particulates on your cement. So that means so many trucks going through Commerce to over there with no filters. And that should not happen. So last time that we had a meeting, we say we was gonna get a police officer. We got with the state, but the state should be able to do something for us. I mean, they got on inspectors and put inspections over there behind in Randolph and right here in this street to catch the guys with no filter, because what they're doing is they disconnect it. And I can mention a couple of names, but not in public, but if it's somebody who needs to know. But this is one of the things that we need to, as a neighborhood, if we don't work together, we're gonna be poisoned. And that's good that we are going after all these little problems. And the bicycle, it will be one of the things that will be essential. I used to ride bicycle before, and I can't do it no more. One thing, you can't do it on the river because there's so many homeless. You can't do it on the street because you were afraid to run over, because they're not designed to do it. We need to figure out how we're going to do it. Anyway.
Yep, we'll pass that on.
Any more comments from the commissions? So we need a motion to receive and file. And
Motion to receive and file the report on environmental justice.
Second that motion.
we have a motion and we have a second. Will you give me a roll call, please, Erica?
Sure. Commissioner Barcena,
Yes.
Commissioner De La Rosa,
Yes.
Commissioner Gomez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Villalobos,
Yes.
and Chairperson Rivera.
Yes. Public comments on non-agenda items. Noted on the staff report and presentation, do I have a second? I mean, sorry, I'm off a little bit here. Hold on 1 second, I just got the wrong page. Public comment is now open for items listed on the Planning Commission agenda. Secretary, will you please announce any instructions of public participation?
Sure. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the Planning Commission agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We do not have anybody in the public wishing to speak, nor do we have anyone in the chat line, Chairperson.
Thank you. If there is no objection by the Planning Commission, I will close public comments. Thank you. Staff, any comments? Entitled product update? Teleconference meetings after termination of California emergency declaration.
Okay.
Chairperson, I believe there was another item under staff comments, the entitlement project update that Adrian will be presenting.
Yes, and I'll start it just because at the last, or good evening, Chair again and Commissioners. At the Commission's last scheduled meeting, Chair Rivera requested to know status of projects that had been heard by the Planning Commission. So this staff comment section, it's appropriate to be responsive to that inquiry and clarify at this point which types of projects require the Commission's discretion or decisions. So for the record, again, my name is Stephen Jones with Adrian Flores here for the Community Development Department Planning Division. And during this brief presentation, you'll hear about project types and paths of entitlement, Planning Commission roles, and then I'll turn it over to Adrian for major project entitlement status. I think that we have a presentation, so I'll just keep going until that part comes up. So we can begin with background, just a little bit about Planning 101, because we have two new commissioners. We appreciated having you guys in for training. So I know you guys are up to speed on protocol and what to do, but just really quickly, the landmark case of 1926, Village of Euclid versus Ambler Realty established land use and zoning. So that means that it's now appropriate, or it was appropriate and still is, to set a precedent for zoning to limit growth and development. Most cities in the United States have some form of zoning. Land use and zoning maps are helpful tools for strategies developers and property owners use to coordinate and determine the highest and best use of land. So once a permissible land use is determined and a project defined, there are different types of reviews. And we briefly went over that earlier. You're not seeing everything that you see occurring in the city. So the California Environmental Quality Act has different types of projects as well. So type 1 review is for small projects, including additions and accessory structures. Many times you'll see ADUs are processed through this type. You won't necessarily see those here before your board, before your committee, excuse me, and they're processed by staff on behalf of the director. Type 2 is required for minor projects, permitted uses, and generally limited to 15 to 50% additions or changes to a use processed by the director. So those are two types of site plan review processes that staff is occurring or doing in the office. Type 3 review is for bigger in size projects processed by staff for recommendation from to be heard by your commission. And so these projects go on the city council if subdivisions are proposed or legislative action. So most of the projects you're seeing will stop at this level, and you're the decision maker for those. They may or may not go to city council. All actions on entitlement requests are appealable to the next higher body, and ministerial projects could be appealed to your body based on if the director's decisions are appealed. The commission is also called upon to advise the council on legislative matters as they pertain to land use and zoning. So we just talked about the EJ element. You guys are already doing things for the public art program. So those are the types of things that require your advice and your advisement as pertains to land use and zoning. So just as you've done tonight, ordinances then become final if adopted based on your recommendation. This was just a summary of the type of projects and items that it would be appropriate for a commission to act on. And Adrian has some updates on projects that you have that this committee has acted on.
Thank you for that introduction, Stephen. I'll go ahead and begin with the entitlement project updates discussion. I'm sorry, staff comment. So these are some of the projects that come forth the Planning Commission in the past, and we want to go ahead and provide you with updates on where they are now. One of the latest projects that was approved by the Planning Commission was located at 5842-48 Quinn Street. It was for a 10-unit condominium project. Now, this was approved back in July 2nd, 2007. And fortunately enough, the project did receive its building final on February 9th, 2023. So that was last week. So we could expect occupants at this project soon in the upcoming weeks or next month or so. The next project is located at 5822 Gotham. This was a 3-unit condominium project. This was approved by the Planning Commission on October 19, 2016. This project is on its final stages of construction. There are a couple of documents that do need to be processed before we're able to move forward with final inspections for this project, but we're hoping to have this project finalized by this year. Now we have 8000 Bell Gardens Avenue. This is a pretty famous project. This project is a 48-unit condominium project, of course, located at 8000 Bell Gardens Avenue. Now, this project was approved back in 2018, November 7th, 2018, to be exact. Now, this project, the project plans was approved by Building and Safety Plan Check on January 18th, 2023. So that was just last month. Now, before we could move forward with this project, additional submittal requirements are required from the applicant before permits can be obtained for this project. So it's moving, and we're hoping to get this project permitted sometime early this year. The next project is the 6622 Clara Street project. It's an equipment rental office and storage yard. Now, this project was approved by the Planning Commission on July 17th, 2019. Now, the project is currently on its final stages of construction. Final inspections with planning and building are underway. We're hoping to see this project finalized in the next couple of weeks. The next project is located at 7604 Perry Road. It's a 7-unit apartment project. This was approved back in August 21st of 2019. As you can see in the photo, the project is currently under construction. We are hoping, hopefully by the end of this year, we could expect some inspection requests from planning, but at this stage, they're still under construction. The next project is 6612 Clara Street. Now, this was for a 2-story warehouse and office building. This is approved by the Planning Commission on October 21st, 2020. This project has been approved for permits on February 6th of 2023. So it's just recently. So we are currently waiting for the applicant to come in and pull the permits. So we're hoping for permits to be issued in the next coming weeks for this project. The next project is located at 8476 Garfield Avenue. This is for the A1 self-storage expansion project. You guys are aware we do have an existing A1 self-storage business located at 8462 Garfield Avenue. This is just an expansion of that business with a 4-story self-storage building. This was approved back in August 25th of 2021. This project is currently in building and safety plan check. So the project plans are being reviewed by engineers as we speak. We're hoping to have permits pulled for this project's hopefully late spring, early spring. The next project is located at 5953 Florence Avenue. This is a 4-unit apartment project. This was for a conditional use permit because it is located in a commercial zone, which apartment homes are permitted by a CUP. This was approved on January 20th of 2021. Now, the project plans for this project has been approved by Building and Safety Plan Check on December 21st, 2022, so about a little 2 months ago. Now, there are additional submittal requirements required before this applicant can pull permits for this project. So we are on active conversations with the applicant and hoping that permits could be pulled for this project in the next coming weeks. The next project is located at 7601, 7607 Eastern Avenue. This was fairly recent, about a little less than a year ago. It's a 2-story office and retail building. It was approved by the Planning Commission on May 18th of 2022. This project is currently pending a submittal of a building and safety plan check. We are hoping to see a submittal for building and safety plan check soon. The next project is located at 5614 Soul Street. This is for the electronic billboard and lease agreement. This was a recommendation from the Planning Commission for approval. I'm sorry, let me reiterate that. So the Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Council on July 20th of 2022. However, it was approved by the City Council on September 12th of 2022. The project is currently in building and safety plan check, and we're hoping we could see this project be approved and ready for permit issuance in the next month or so. That concludes my presentation. Staff is available for any questions you have regarding these. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And then if you have questions, great. I can wait, but I have one or two more things to say.
Yeah, just let me, any commissions, any questions? Rosa, no questions? No question, go ahead and.
Okay, thank you. And then Erica is going to share on her screen the information that we're discussing right now. So this memo to commissioners from the city clerk is available for your review. It details protocol for attendance after California terminates the COVID-19 emergency declaration. Traditional Brown Act teleconference requirements will be in place, and participating remotely is governed by AB 2449, meaning in-person attendance is the expectation, except in exceptions. There are exceptions for just cause and emergency circumstances. Remote participation for no more than 2 meetings per calendar year would be considered just cause under authorized reasons that include family caregiving, contagious illness, a need to a need related to a physical or mental disability or travel or official public agency business. So those are the just cause reasons. And then the emergency circumstance exception means a physical or family medical emergency that prevents in-person attendance. The emergency exception clause may be invoked a maximum of 3 consecutive months or 20% of meetings per calendar year. And in this case, with the Planning Commission, it ends up being 2 because we only have generally 1 meeting a month. So 2 meetings. Teleconferencing will still be available for residents and staff. So that's the summary, and we can shoot that to you guys so you can have it for your information. And then lastly, planning items included in the city's previous 3 biweekly happenings since the last time we met. The city had a total of 45 counter visits, 9 site plan review applications, some of those which you'll see, 7 business license zoning requests. Staff is applying for a Metro grant to help accommodate required density updates and bring services and jobs along with housing to the Metro defined area where the 110 route and the 111 route cross. So that's at Florence and Garfield. And staff is applying for assistance to help accommodate that grant, and we have been awarded assistance to do that. So that would help facilitate us with a successful application. So Metro grant writing assistance was provided by Metro for a Metro grant. Hopefully that means we're going to get it. Staff also applied for grant funding from the Southern California Association of Governments to help promote affordable broadband connectivity. So there are federal programs available for certain income and demographics to help erase the digital divide. So we're looking for funding to help promote that. So we are anticipating an answer within the next couple of months, but that was something that was applied for as well. We're also anticipating filing for at least 2 sustainable transportation planning grants. So that will help to work in conjunction with the types of things we're looking at for environmental justice to actually implement the things that we come up with based on that community engagement we discussed. So those are at least 2 more grants we're looking to receive to help the city move forward with, again, environmental justice and accommodating what the state requires us to do. And then lastly, the rent stabilization ordinance is moving forward with a selection panel to recommend a consultant be approved to look at a study for rental registry unit fees so that the city can be recovered with staff time or recover staff time that's associated with implementing that rent stabilization ordinance. So that's staff comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry, can you go over that Metro grant that you
Yeah.
said was for Florence and Garfield? What exactly?
So it's looking at one of the things that we have to do with the recent housing element update and certification and the general plan amendment that we processed earlier this year and last year require the city of Bell Gardens to accommodate 503 new units for regional housing needs assessment. So in order to do that, we need to update the zoning code to first streamline the process to receive those units and then help the infrastructure around providing those units. So that Metro grant assistance is to help us win a Metro grant, to help us look at how we implement 503 units, not just in that area, but in the city as a whole. That particular area is a study area for transit-oriented type development. So it'll help us look at how to, again, attract developers, how to make sure that when we do attract those developers, there's not just units, but there's services, retail, jobs, housing balance to make sure all that doesn't have a negative impact on City of Bell Gardens. So that grant writing assistance is to help us be favored in the grant selection.
Thank you.
Any questions? Adrian, thank you very much for the update. I was wondering last time I asked you, I think that was a very nice report. You always wonder what happened after you approve, the projects, see how long it takes. Like you see a year and they're just to get one permit. So now, and some of the stuff, this takes a long time. I think it would be nice for us to know what was the problem. It was our problem here, the planning, the city, or it was problem on their side. A lot of times it's the financing, all these other areas. But I think it's good to know because sometimes you wonder if it's us. Another question that I have, and I don't know if we can get a report on some of those vendors that are closing the sidewalks and some of these businesses that we've been approval, like on Florence. We have some in here in this market. They close the street, practically the sidewalk. So people that go in wheelchair, they have to go out to the street in order to go by because they just block the whole street. I mean, the whole sidewalk. I think I would like to see how we're gonna fix the problem. And for the planning commission, I think we have a lot to learn about how we're gonna handle those problems. Sometimes you have a problem with the vendors not having license, not having the right permits. But another problem is to block the public right of way. That's a big problem for far as I'm concerned. It's a big problem. People cannot walk to there. They have to go to the street. We're talking about we can't get bicycle. Now we're talking about people who walking. So I think I would like to see if we're gonna have a code enforcement or parking enforcement. The police, whoever needs to work on this because we need to unite to all these problems as a neighborhood, and everybody is really crying about. I hear it from the restaurants. I hear it from people.
We'd be happy to report on the city's actions and what code enforcement and the police and our building and safety license departments are doing.
Thank you very much. Any questions? More questions? If not, I will have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second and adjourn. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.